I save myself from the police every time, showing my ID card, running around. Then I manage to go to my brother's place and do it.
Wow, wow! You really must enjoy what you do, and that's why one takes that trouble, right?
Hold up.
It's not every day that you get to speak with a person who has opinions or views on everything that you probably watch now on digital also. तो ये सबकी पसंद है और आज जो सबकी पसंद है मिस्टर राजीव मसंद आज वो हमारे साथ हैं. So sir, how are you?
I'm well, thank you, Aditya. Thank you for that very kind introduction. I'm not bad. I'm trying to continue working. I think that these are unusual times. These are difficult times, and I realized that the only thing that would kind of keep me sane is if I kept working. So pretty early on, I started, doing interviews through Skype and Zoom like you're doing, or and watching a lot of stuff. Like you rightly said, आजकल सब platforms पे इतने ज़्यादा films हैं, इतने ज़्यादा shows आ रही हैं, नई shows आ रही हैं कि it's not hard to actually keep yourself busy and to continue doing what you used to do. Only you have to adapt to the new formats. You're not going to meet anyone and do face-to-face interviews. You're going to do them virtually.
So how is your personal adaptation going at home?
We're spending a lot of. I live with we live with my parents, so it's actually in a way it's a great thing because there's company. You're not alone. But on the other hand, we're also not used to spending this much time with family. You're not used to spending 24/7 with family. So of course it's a little hard. I mean, it's your own patience is tested, and you are certainly testing their patience. But I think one has to understand that we're in very extraordinary circumstances. So one just has to tide these through.
What were those key transformational moments of your life that made you Rajeev Masand today? Like 3-4 of them.
When I started, I did a little bit of feature journalism. I did a little bit of reporting, but I think when one decided that films and entertainment is what I'm going to cover, which I would say happened 23, 24 years ago. I mean, making that decision was certainly something that was a big turning point, and sort of deciding that this is what I want my beat to be. This is something that I love. I love watching films. Now perhaps there can be a profession here. So I would say that, and then television. Switching to television. When I joined Star News and have a show on my own name, I had Masand Ki Pasand on Star News, and then of course I would say great opportunities. I mean, I once had the opportunity to cover the Oscars, to go to the Oscars and cover the Oscars, a chance to actually be there, and to see what it's actually like, the madness, the craziness. I mean, everything that you see, it's 5 times more because there's so much that happens which you don't see. Everyone says, oh, this looks like fun, but it's really tense. I mean, you're on that red carpet. You want actors and filmmakers to stop, and it looks like, oh, everyone stops for everyone. They don't. You have to really try to get them to stop and talk to you. I mean, and these are not. It's not like this is a Bollywood red carpet where they know you. But, these are actors and filmmakers that don't know you, and you still need to try to convince them to stop, and you have to do it in a way that's elegant, and you can't be screaming and shouting, and you can't do things like that.
Let's say Akshay Kumar does 5 films a year. I can easily say you're the Sachin Tendulkar of this field because you've been there for so many years now. You've interviewed and spoken to him like millions of times now. Of course, he has a different character in a film, but he's Akshay Kumar at the end of the day. How do you bring out the new stuff to ask him or anybody?
That's a good question, and I think that if you're a good journalist, you learn that, maybe this particular interview is not about, is about a certain part of his. I mean, maybe the charities that he does in his life. So then you focus on that in this interview, or you, research is very important. So the research I do myself. I mean, I need to do my research myself because someone can print out copy and give it to you, but you need to understand it and make questions based on that question. I think that one has to find new angles because the person doesn't change. The person is the same person you're interviewing him 4th time in a year. You have to find different angles. You have to find or maybe you talk about, like, if I was interviewing Akshay today, I don't think I would ask him about his film at all. I would ask him about COVID-19, and I would ask him about how that's going to change the business. And that would definitely be a very different interview from the one that I did maybe 4 months ago, because obviously that was not about this. So it's about finding what is newsy. It's about understanding what people want to listen to this person talk about, and asking the right questions. So I think when you do it for a long time, you kind of get the hang hang of it. But you're right. I mean, there are times that I found that I don't know what to ask. I just don't have, and some interviews sort of flop. They fail because you just couldn't find a new angle. You couldn't find something interesting to ask this person that you're interviewing the 4th time this year.
कोई फैमिली आपका कोई दोस्त है, राजीव यार मैं एक सवाल बताता हूँ, तू अक्षय कुमार से ये सवाल पूछियो यार और देखना वो क्या जवाब देगा. Does that happen with you?
I mostly get यार तू अक्षय कुमार को से मिलवा दे या हमको शूट पे लेके आ जा के लेके जा. Yeah, but that's you have to separate the personal and the professional. There is a courtesy and there is a politeness, but it is a professional relationship. So I don't encourage that. I don't take family to to meet. The other question is some gossip. There's a kuch gossip batana because you cover films. They think that you know everything that needs to be known. So those are the usual questions that come up. Or some friend's kid's birthday. And my kid is a big fan of Ranveer Singh or Varun. Can you get them to wish him? And I was like, of course not. That's not going to happen. I'm not going to call them. I don't want to ever be in a position of asking personal favors from actors. I've never done that, and I would like to keep it that way. And I think that's why they respect you. They're not your friends. I mean, we all speak. We speak nicely. We meet. When we meet, one meets fondly and affectionately. But you have to understand that they're actors. You're a journalist. They're doing their job. You're doing your job. But yes, those questions come, and the answer is always no. So I will just say this: I'm not very popular with my nieces and nephews and cousins because I never agree to do any of those things. Well, the latest thing is get them to send a voice note, get them to do a selfie video, get them to call up on that person's birthday. I was like, I'm not doing any of these things. I'm sorry, it's never going to happen.
So if somebody wants to start, let's say, being a critic, if somebody wants to go into that field, what's the first thing they can do, they can learn sitting at home today?
Watch a lot of films. I mean, you have to watch a lot of films. I mean, there's no, I mean, you have to love films. You have to watch, and you can't say, oh, I will watch everything, but I won't watch horror films because I don't like horror films, and then writing about them. I mean, yes, you want to be a film critic, but you're not going to get the Times of India is not going to give you a job as a critic. When you decide that you want to be a critic, you have to spend some time honing your skills. How do you do that? A blog is the best way to start and start showing it around. Get opinions. Read other film critics, not to be inspired, to be influenced, but understand what the craft of criticism is. Read the critics that you like a lot, and then read the critics that you don't like a lot, and try to understand why you don't like them. I think that there's a lot of misconceptions when it comes to film criticism. I think that people think that someone who is able to correctly predict the box office success of a film is a critic. That's not a critic. So you have to watch a lot of films and films from all over the world. It's not enough just to watch Bollywood films. Even if you want to be a Bollywood film critic, you still have to be exposed to films from everywhere. Because how will you be able to comment? How will you be able to compare? How will you be able to spot references? How will you be able to see influences if you haven't seen some great cinema? So I would say immediately, start watching everything that there is, and start writing a blog. That would be a great place to start. Get more and more people to slowly read your blogs. Take that feedback seriously. Get people that you admire. Maybe reach out to a critic and say, hey, would you take a look at 1 or 2 reviews of mine? And you know what? Most of them will do it. That's where you build from. And once you're in a place of confidence, once you feel like I write decently, people like to read what I write. I have an opinion. I actually have an opinion. I'm not just giving you a synopsis of a summary of a film. Then maybe it's time to approach a newspaper or a channel or a digital portal and say, hey, do you need a critic? And the thing is, today everyone needs more critics because there's just so much material.
Yes.
It's impossible to review. It's impossible for one person to review every film and every single TV show, international, Indian, within Indian, Tamil, Telugu, everything. There's just so much that one person can't do that job. So most people are hiring or are recruiting as freelancers multiple critics. If you're good, you probably will get a job.
Let's say if I'm a fan of SRK, and if you've written something that probably I didn't like, so I'll probably be like, hey, Rajeev Masand, what nonsense you write. So everybody faces that, and I think nobody addresses probably depression and mental health and everything. How are you maintaining your mental health?
That's a good question. I can't claim to be an expert, so I want to say that first. That I'm just saying what I think is the truth. I would imagine that having company in these times is certainly helpful because you can, if you're alone, I mean, I would imagine that, being alone when times are great is one thing, but being alone when you can't step out and when you're limited and when you have a lot of housework to do, and you have a lot of time to think. I would imagine it can be difficult. Not to say that if you're living with people, it's all hunky dory. I just think that surround yourself by positive people, surround yourself by positive thoughts. I also realize that while saying this, it's so easy for a third person to say it, but what you're going through is such a personal, individual experience. I mean, seek help. I think so much. There's so much stigma attached to. None of us want to admit it. None of us want to accept that, oh, we are depressed. I know I've often said, when someone talks about, we also use the word depressed very loosely, right? We don't understand that it's actually a clinical term. I'm depressed. You're not depressed. You're in a bad mood. There has to be, one has to understand the difference between that. And also someone who is depressed doesn't want to hear that they're in a bad mood, because they're suffering from something much more serious.
I know if a film does well, I know that actor is successful. If people appreciate the script, I know script writer is nice. अगर एक director बहुत सारी film करे, हमको मालूम है, हाँ, इनका काम पसंद किया जा रहा है. But as a critic, when do you yourself feel कि हाँ यार, I think मैं अब successful हुआ? Because there's no measure to it.
But you're right, there is no measure to it. I think it's very important to be a good judge of your own work. Listen to what others are saying, certainly, but you should be able to know that you look at your own work very differently from how someone else looks at your work. So I think that it's constantly changing. With every review, you have to ask yourself, was this the best I could have done, or could I have spent more time, thinking about it? Could I have spent some more time writing about it? Could I have, done it a little bit differently? I think you have to be a good judge of your own work.
So we do not know what the future, or probably which next film is actually going to be released in theaters, and we don't know what's going to come online now. But what do you think the future is looking like?
I do think that the cinemas will come back. I actually think that in India specifically, where it's such a medium of escape and of fantasy and of we look at cinemas for entertainment primarily. So I don't think this is the death knell for cinemas. But I do think that the kind of films that used to release in cinemas might change. I do think that now the OTTs will be able to play a certain kind of film which the cinemas were never able to give as many screens as you could, or, as they could, or draw as many audiences as they could. A film like Gulabo Se Tabo, I don't know if that would be it's a very different film from one like Suryavanshi, for example. I think Suryavanshi can wait it out until the cinemas open, because there will be a certain craze for that. Whereas Gulabo Se Tabo, perhaps it is best suited to come on a streaming platform, because it will find a much larger audience in streaming than it probably would have in the theaters.
So I'm going to put you in a difficult spot now, because let's say probably you can ask a few people the last questions possible. What would those questions be? Let's say if you were supposed to ask Mr. Bachchan.
I would ask him, do you really not get tired of acting? Do you have there been days when you just didn't enjoy it because you've gone on for so long? Has it always been from a place of love? Did you never just say, I've done enough, I want to put my feet up and I want to relax because I can afford to relax?
SRK?
Why won't you make a film with a director who you greatly admire and let him make the film that he wants to make, instead of making him make the film that you want to make? I think that Shahrukh is the smartest actor around. But I think he often does the job of others as well. If you want to work with Mani Ratnam, why won't you let Mani Ratnam make a Mani Ratnam film instead of Mani Ratnam making a Shahrukh Khan film?
Imtiaz Ali?
Do you have more stories to tell? Because we're bored.
So I know that you've maintained your sanity, but has there been a moment when somebody's gone like, hey Rajeev, kya likha yaar tune, maine itna mehnat kiya, ye kya kar diya?
Of course, all the time. That happens all the time, and you have to understand that that filmmakers are very close to their films. Especially when a movie's just come out, they've worked very hard. Even the worst films have been made by filmmakers who are trying to make something good. No one sets out saying, let's make a lousy film. So of course one understands that they would be upset and that they would be, they would take it personally. And of course there are so many filmmakers who will say that, but I try to explain to them that that's my opinion. This doesn't mean that this is the only opinion. It's not, criticism is not a monolith. There's no right or wrong. It doesn't mean that this is the right answer. Somebody else will feel very differently about it. So don't give it too much importance. Don't give it too much thought. In fact, I tell filmmakers that, those who get angry, I say, this is how I felt about it. But it doesn't mean that this is the only right answer. There'll be different people will have different opinions. And for your sake, I hope that more people like it. I didn't like it, but I'm sure you'll make the next one, which I will probably like. So that's how I respond to it.
Okay. Any of your favorite films, sir?
In Bollywood, Udan is. I love Black Friday, Mehuna, Piku Mastan very much. Rocket Singh, Hollywood, The Social Network, and Affair to Remember. It's an old film. Um, God, this is tricky. And this is tough. I love a lot of David Fincher's films. I love a lot of Woody Allen's films. Annie Hall.
Any of your favorite songs?
I love Ajkal. There's a song called Shayad, which I really, really, really love. There's a song from Good News whose name is now blanking. I'm blanking out, but my favorite, like my favorite song. I think I think the most evocative romantic Hindi song is Lag Ja Gale.
I won't ask your favorite actors and actresses because I'm sure you love everybody. But just to ask you, any of the actors whose film you could like revisit, and like you can keep rewatching their films, you can keep loving their act of probably bringing something new to the table every time.
I often say that there are some actors whose work I've enjoyed so much that I would watch any film that they're in. I mean, whatever film they're doing, I'll give it a shot. For me, those would be Rishi Kapoor. I'm just the biggest fan, and I was completely gutted when he passed recently. I love Rishi Kapoor, and I would watch any film that he's in, and I probably watched probably every film he's been in. Amir Khan, I think Amir just is such a chameleon. He really kind of changes and molds himself. Ranbir Kapoor. From the younger lot of actors, I find that he's very, very nuanced, and his acting is very. There's a lot of subtlety and measure. Apart from that, among the women, I mean, I want to say Vidya Balan, Tabu. I mean, Tabu is literally my all-time favorite. I think among everyone, Tabu is my absolute favorite actress.
Some new hobby that you've picked up in this lockdown?
Nothing. I've just learned how to use Zoom and Skype and how to set a camera frame and how to use lights and the ring light and all those. But no, I wanted to learn the guitar, but how do I get hold of a guitar? I wanted to learn the piano. That's actually what I want to do. But how do you learn the piano if you don't have a piano? So when the stores open, maybe I'll buy a small Casio, and I really want to learn. But no, nothing. I mean, this is so embarrassing. We're going to reach the 60-day. No new skills. And you're right. I mean, saying I learned how to use Zoom and Skype does not count because everyone learned that.
Any of your favorite books, sir?
I love my J.D. Salinger's Catcher in the Rye is literally my all-time favorite. I love a book by Stephen King, but it's not one of his horror stories. It's a film. It's a book about writing, and it's called On Writing. It's a memoir actually of his, but it's also a book about writing, about the craft of writing and how one should write. It's called On Writing by Stephen King. I love that book. I really enjoyed Call Me by Your Name by Andre Aciman, which also became a beautiful film. These are the ones. I mostly read a lot of non-fiction, so I don't have any exciting. A lot of film-related books, non-fiction books. A lot of biographies. I'm reading Woody Allen's memoir, and I've said this in every interview, so it feels like I've been reading it for 1 month. But the truth is that I haven't been making a lot of progress. I end up reading in small portions, so I haven't finished it yet.
When are we going to see your book? Because you have so much to give out.
There will be one. I mean, it's not a memoir or something. Who cares? But there is a book that hopefully one will get down to soon.
And the last one, any podcast you're listening to?
On Audible Suno, there is and I've forgotten the name. There's a great one that Nilesh Mishra does, and also on Audible Suno there is one that Anurag got Nawazuddin and Tabu, and it's a thriller podcast, and I forget what it's called. I'm ashamed. Thriller Factory on Audible Suno. Those are the ones that I'm listening to, but I'm going to use this to plug my own podcast. It's also on Audible Suno. It's called Picture Ke Piche, and it's about the making of some of the best Hindi films in the last 20 years. Their conversations with the filmmakers and the actors. So if you're interested in that, that's Picture Ke Piche on Audible Suno. I'm sorry, I just hijacked this and made it about my own podcast.
With that, sir, I have come to my end of these questions for this time at least, until I meet you. So thank you so much for your time, sir. Thank you, really.
Thank you. My pleasure. Hope your Wi-Fi gets sorted soon. So you can do this from your own home. I really enjoyed being on Aditya's show, Bas 21 Din Ki Baat Hai. I think it's a great idea to to communicate with people and to understand what they're up to during lockdown. So if you enjoyed this interview, please like, share, and subscribe to this video. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.